Welcome to the Strong, Single and Human podcast, a real look at single parenting, how to navigate the ups and downs of life with kids on your own while keeping sane. We cover all manner of subjects from domestic violence, dealing with childhood trauma, through to fussy eaters and how to help your kids become resilient. I'm your host, Claire Martin. Welcome. This week's guest is a mother of 3 children, one of whom was diagnosed with severe autism some 36 years ago. From the age of 1, her eldest was different from other children, and she tirelessly searched to find out what was wrong, and after 4 years was told he was autistic. During this time, she left her addicted husband and found herself alone with little or no support. Feeling rage, loneliness, exhausted, overwhelmed, confused, disconnected and stressed, she had to support her children emotionally and financially. She worked 15-hour days and nights until one day, after being sexually harassed by her boss, she decided that she couldn't continue living the life she was living and sought help. This is part 1 of her journey. Part 2 will follow next week, so keep listening. Graciela, how are you? Thanks for joining us on the podcast. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Claire, for having me here. Thank you so much.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Look, wow, crikey. I've just gone through the intro and everything that you've been through. Tell us about this. What you've been through with your eldest son and what went on, what your journey was with him. Because I've only briefly touched on a few things, but it sounds like a hell of a roller coaster.
I can tell you a little bit from the beginning in reality, because everything has started from the beginning. Well,
so when did you first notice that he wasn't quite the same as some of the other children?
Actually, when he was 1 year old.
Wow.
I was pregnant by that time with my second son, Federico. And I say, he needs some stimulation. He needs to do something. He's by himself all the time with me. So I decided to take him to a kindergarten, or a kind of play group, And he wasn't playing with any kids. He was at the corner, sitting, played by himself and nothing. He wasn't interacting. So suddenly, the teacher and a psychologist, they said to me, I think he's not deaf because he can hear us. However, he's not interacting anytime with anyone. And I thought, here is something wrong. So I started to read. By that time, internet, you have to think about, Martin is turning 40 in 5 weeks. So by that time, internet didn't exist. So I needed to go to the library to seek some understanding what was happening. The doctor didn't say to me, he said, he's growing quite well. We don't know what is happening with him, blah, blah. So I started to seek, to go to library and trying to read and read and read. So there I discovered autism.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Autism for me didn't exist.
Yeah, and also, like you said, there's no internet. We can't Google. It's 36 years ago. So
no, that was
it would have been
39
longer.
Years.
Yeah. So 39 years ago, it was only just being born.
Correct. So, and all the characteristic of him was ticking boxes, So I mentioned to the psychology of this place. They have a big kindergarten and a psychologist there. And she said, you don't have any idea the words you are saying at the moment. Because when I say to her, I think my son is autistic, she thought that I was totally nuts.
Wow.
So anyway, by that time, I was having problem with my husband. So I used to go to a psychologist. And my psychologist used to have a colleague who was a psychology for children. And I say, I beg you, I would like her. Can you ask help? I need her to stimulate my son, Martin. And they say, no, he's too little. He's only 1 year old. No. I begged so much that after like 4 or 5 months begging them, the lady decided to start stimulating Martin. They didn't know. They say maybe he has emotional shock or something. They didn't know what he was having. So anyway, to tell the story short, from that time, my journey started with him. I started to go to psychology, I started to go to neurology, psychiatry, everything that I can touch, I was taking him against my husband's will.
Wow.
He didn't want me to do that. So it was very, very hard for me.
So you basically didn't have any support from your husband, and then were you then waiting for your husband to go off to work to then take your child to all of these different appointments and things?
A lot of money.
And were these appointments costing you any money at the time?
Money. I was earning money.
Oh my gosh.
But it was a lot of money because you have to think about mental illness wasn't covered by that time. No way. It was only for rich people, mental illness.
Well, exactly. But really the tests and things like that regarding autism now, ADHD, all of those sort of things has improved so much. Like 39 years ago, I mean, I wasn't aware of any autism or anything like that, or, there was, we just didn't have it. ADHD didn't really, I didn't know anyone at school who had ADHD and stuff like that. So, wow. And so what did you do? You were just begging people to test him. Exactly. And were there any tests at the time?
By that time, one of the most famous person in Argentina said to me, he was 2 years and a half. He said, I think he has emotional block. That's it. That was his diagnosis. Nobody was telling me nothing. He was a neurologist, very well known there. Number 1 in Argentina by that time. So anyway, I continue. By that time, I separated from my husband. My situation with him was very hard to live with because he was addicted to morphine.
Wow.
So it was...
So not only living with a autistic child, and I suppose by then, so an autistic child who wasn't diagnosed, so you didn't really have any solutions or any, you didn't know what was wrong as such. I suppose by then you also had son number 2 and dealing with your addicted husband.
It was not,
which is...
Yes, sorry to interrupt, Claire, yeah. But it was 9 that Martin used to hit his head against the wall. And my husband sick because of all of the medication he used to put inside his body. So looking after my son, looking after him, and looking after the poor little one that he was beautiful. Federico was, beautiful. And he used to look at his brother during the night in his coat, how he was hitting himself on the wall, on the window. So I didn't used to sleep at all. So I couldn't live. So I decided to separate from him. I took him to court, and it was very hard because he didn't want to leave the house either. So anyway, to make a story short, my husband, obviously, because he didn't want to get separated, he didn't support me financially. So I needed to work more and more and more.
Oh my gosh.
I was by myself with 2 years old, 2 years and a half, and Martin, and only 30 months, Federico.
Wow.
So thank God I have a father that he was financially okay. So he helped me with the house and to bring some food to the table, because all of the treatment that Martin was having by that time, taking to the occupational therapy, to the psychology, everyone to try to stimulate him, was costing me fortune. So it was every penny that I was earning, it was going to his therapist.
And you were working as well at the time, were you? So
I was working.
Your youngest child, who was 13 months, where did he go? Did he go with family, or
he used to go to a kindergarten around the corner? And when he was 2, he used to say to me, "Mom, don't worry about me. You go to work and earn a lot of money." And he was so sweet.
Shame, what a cute
Don't
kid.
worry. I do remember he was so little, It was so beautiful to see. It's like I can see him say to me that.
And then your eldest son, was he going to kinder as well while you were working?
He was going to the kinder. In the meantime, I was working, and I used to have a housekeeper as well.
Oh, okay.
So I used to have someone at home.
Wow. And were you doing like just the one job, or did you have several jobs, or what were you? How were you?
By that time, I used to have 2
jobs. Wow.
Then I will tell you later, because I ended up having 3 jobs at some time to maintain my life, because it was very expensive. Obviously, every treatment for Martini was expensive. So I started to travel around Argentina to find an answer. And I went, people were coming from Brazil, from France, and I was visiting all of the therapists. They were coming from everywhere. When Martin turned 4, I went to Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. I wasn't living there. I was living 1,200 kilometers away. So, and I went to see a neurology and psychiatrist. So this doctor said to me, "Your son is autistic." The moment he said, "Your son is autistic," even though I knew as a mother instinct, I knew he was. I was in such a shock.
Wow.
Suddenly, I was as autistic as Martin. I left the office, his office, and really I started walking with Martin. I do remember what kind of clothes he was wearing. I remember like it's today. So this is 36 years ago. I started to walk and walk and walk. We crossed Avenue. We were almost run over by a car because I didn't know where I was. I was totally lost. We walk and walk and walk. This beautiful boy next to me, holding my hand. And the night came, and really, I was in shock. I was by myself, totally shocked, totally lost, angry, saying to myself, "Why me? Why him? Why us?"
Yeah, I can, yeah.
He was such a beautiful, gorgeous boy. And I knew that this was going to be forever, a challenge forever. Because he was getting worse. He wasn't getting better.
Yeah, and I can imagine it would have been a shock. I suppose you were living with it for those 3 odd years until he was 4, until he actually got that diagnosis, but you just weren't sure in your head until somebody actually said it to you, and then you just went through all of those different emotions. And it's funny you should say that, because I've spoken to a couple of parents who have autistic children on the podcast, and they are very their reaction was very similar to yours. Like, why me? What have I done wrong? Have I done something wrong? Was it my diet? Was it where I lived? Was it my environment? Was it my partner? You know, what was the reason that my son or my daughter, why are they autistic? Is it something I've done?
By that time, you have to think about that. They used to say that autistic kids they have autism because the mother is not connected with the child the minute they are born. So my guilt was huge. Then they started to investigate a little bit more, blah, blah, blah. But by that time, autistic kids from a totally disconnected mom. The moment, yes. And the moment I received the diagnosis was the moment I totally disconnected from myself. That is the difference. It was totally the opposite, you know.
Exactly. And all the time up to the diagnosis, all you were doing was fighting for your child. So how you could be disconnected from him, that's just an insane reasoning, isn't it?
So the journey started, the city where I live, it was a small city, it wasn't the capital. So all of the treatment, it wasn't in one place. So I had to take to the psychology, to the occupational therapy, to the music therapy, to everything. And it was a nightmare. So my father, by that time, built a beautiful house for me to live in with my children. Beautiful. He went into debt for me to build that beautiful house. I lived only 6 months there, but I decided I cannot live here. This is not good for me. It's not good for my child. My family and my friends, they were started to distant from me because it was so hard to deal with my situation. Martin was very hyperactive, full on, and they couldn't see me, and neither him suffering the way so the people started unconsciously started to distance from us. So I was feeling more isolated. So I decided to go to Buenos Aires to live, and I rented the beautiful house my father built, and I rented for 3/4 of the value of that house. I rented an apartment in Buenos Aires to seek help, a treatment for him in one place. So, and that means that I needed to find a job to pay for all of the bills as well. So I was covered with the rent of my house. I was covered for the hospital, but I needed to leave. So, and my father wasn't happy with my decision. My family wasn't happy with my decision because my father went into debt for me, and then I decided to leave. So anyway, I found a shop, a fantastic shop, said everything comes, the universe sent to you. When you are in a dark hole, believe me, when you believe that things are going to happen. I found a fantastic shop that it was only 7 blocks from my house. So it was fantastic. I was earning good money, but I had to work long hours to earn those good money.
Wow, yes.
So I used to go 9 o'clock to work and come back at 7 o'clock home. And I used to take one son to kindergarten, the other son to the hospital, and me to work. And from work, they used to give me lunchtime to go to pick up my son for kindergarten to take to they used to have a kindergarten to look after the employee children. So it was fantastic. So he was from 12 to 7. Federico was from 12 to 7. And Martin was in the hospital. But the hospital finished 1 or 2 o'clock. So I have to pick up him, bring home, so to have some occupational therapy at home to look after him until I was coming back. That was costing me fortune.
Lots of money and lots of juggling though, because like 2 children and like, yeah, no, definitely.
Thank God it was all close distant because Buenos Aires is huge. It's a huge, but I was blessed by that. So, and even Martin, I do remember he used to stand up in front of the clock at the time it was supposed to me to come back from work.
Shame.
He was
Shame. So you were in a big city, so it'd be like going from, I don't know, Melbourne to Sydney, basically. We had no family, and you had the 2 children. One was a autistic baby or boy or toddler, really, toddler now. Your other son, did your other son have any autism or anything like that? No. So your other son was fine. And there's you working to pay to live and bring food in, as well as pay all the medical bills and things like that as well. But that really wasn't like your journey still. I mean, that wasn't like a bed of roses and everything happy, because like your eldest son started to get older. And what started to happen when he started to get older?
Yes, thank you for asking. He was starting to get more aggressive. He is non-verbal severely. He was considered the second more severe case in Argentina by that time. So he was full on, hardly able to handle, to the point they used to call me every time at work to come to pick him up because they couldn't handle him.
Wow. So doubly hard for you.
They couldn't have. So I was continuously disturbed by the institute he used to go, the hospital he used to go, because then he started to change because nobody was coping with him. So I need to change him from one place to the next. It was a nightmare. I was living like a zombie, like a ghost, because it was one problem after the other. I wasn't smiling. I was totally depleted, angry, feeling guilty of everything, totally disconnected to me and totally disconnected. I used to take the kids to every activity, but I was like a zombie. I was living by default. I need to do this. I was working as well. By that time also, I was studying to get promoted, to earn more money, because the cost of living was so high over there. So
it was just relentless. It sounds to me as though it was relentless, and there was just no break for you. There was just no like, because did the children see their dad at all?
No.
Did their children?
No.
Because of his addiction and things like that. So you had the children 24/7.
He was in that bad stage that his mother and his sister, they knew where I was living, but they weren't telling him because he was kind of dangerous by that time. So
yeah. So there was no break for you. There was no like going, I'm going to have a couple of hours to myself, because the only chance you got to have to yourself was when you were working, I suppose, because which is very much like a lot of single mums. I mean, me included, in the fact that, I get time to myself when my son's at school, because other than that, I have him 24/7 now. So yeah. Apart from play dates. So son number 1, your eldest son, he basically was going to various different places, but they couldn't handle him, and they were experienced in dealing with autistic children.
Yes.
But they couldn't handle him.
Exactly.
So you were then having to move him to somewhere else that was experienced, And they couldn't handle him.
I always was constantly looking for someone to handle Martin.
Wow.
All the time, because nobody was able to handle him. It was very hard. It was very hard. And by that time, also, I was harassed by my boss sexually.
Okay.
So I thought, this is enough. I don't know.
Yeah, just all of that just on top of everything else. It's just like, so how did you deal with that as well? Because, like, you know, you're needing this work, you're needing a job to pay for everything, to put food on the table. You're managing stuff with your eldest son being moved from institute or, you know, institute to institute because they couldn't deal with and handle him. And he's also growing, right? So he's getting bigger and bigger and bigger because he's not a small man, is he? I mean, he's a man now. He's 40.
He was very tall all the time. Yeah. He was taller than the kids his age. Always taller. So it was getting very, very, very hard for me. So I started, even though my money, I used to hardly have any money left. So, and I thought I cannot seek a therapy for myself. All the money goes to Martin, you know, or for us to eat. I decided, no, I'm going to do something for myself. I cannot continue this way. I need support. I am totally alone in this. I was feeling so lonely. Yeah,
well, exactly.
Oh my goodness. So I thought, what can I do? So the only way I found, I started trying to find a therapist, and it was very expensive, because now we can afford better today. Believe me, by that time, everything was very expensive. So I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is to eat once a day. And all of the money I save in eating is going to go to my therapist. I lost 12 kilos.
Oh my God.
I was so skinny. I was like a stick because I never was bigger. So I was so skinny that people, they thought that I was anorexic. You know,
gosh.
I was so skinny dealing with the kids and working full time and hardly eating anything. I was hardly eating anything because all of the money of the food was going to the therapist. But believe me, after 3 months, I was promoted. Give me a good span to think again. I was promoted. I made the effort. I thought, I need something for me. I need to look after me. I need to do something because I cannot deal with the kids. I cannot deal with all of what is happening. Anyway, I was promoted. I was able to come back to eat. I was able to pay for my therapy. So I was so committed to look after myself. Yeah. And I started to think, oh my goodness, now I understand. Now I understand. When Martin got the diagnosis, the first that should have sought help, it was me. No immediately seek help for him. Because all of the treatment that Martin was getting, it was going down the drain. Because his mother wasn't okay. I wasn't okay. So from the minute I started to be supported, to have some help, not to feel so lonely, so angry, with so much resentment, so frustrated, I started to improve. However, Martin's behavior was getting worse and worse and worse. I was able to connect with him because he started to look at my eyes. Believe me, until that time, Martin wasn't looking at my eyes. When I used to talk to him, he was always looking around, but never to my eyes. And suddenly he discovered me. And he looked at me.
Because you'd gone and got therapy and looked after yourself, and sort of you then were in a place where you could help him as such, and you weren't just surviving.
Good put it. Very well put it, Claire. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was very connected, and I was more in tune with my heart. And I was, and I look at him. I do remember we were on the floor, and he suddenly did this and looked at my eyes.
Wow!
It was like a full connection.
Yeah.
It was beautiful connection. So he continued with treatment. He was getting more aggressive with his all his kids that they were receiving some treatment as well.
Because was he at home with you still? Like he was still staying at home with you, like at night and things like that, and all of those sort of things.
Yeah. Okay. And Federico was losing his hair. So one day I decided to take him to the dermatologist to find out what was happening that he was losing his hair. And he said to me, Federico was only 8 years old. And he said to me, Mom, can we go to have a coffee after the doctor? Yes, no problem. Let's go to we can go for a coffee. And we went. We left the doctor and we went half block, I do remember today as well. And we went to have a coffee with him. And he said, what would you like to have, Mom? And I say, I want a coffee. Can I ask for a Coke and a toast sandwich? Yes, go ahead. He was only 8. So he was like a man ordering to the waiters, can you bring a coffee for my mom and a Coke and a toast sandwich for me? He was beautiful. And he started to say to me, Mom, I want to know. Bring me a lot of emotion. He said, Mom, Martin is going to recover. No. Is he going to get better? And he said, Mom, I need time with you.
Because he felt that you were using all of your time to try and look after his elder brother, and he didn't resent that, but he really just wanted time with you, and he was happy for you to look after his elder brother if he was going to get better. But if he was just going to stay as he was or get worse, then he wanted some of your time as well.
I say to him, he may get a little bit better, but never is going to be like you.
Yeah.
And he said to me, Mom, what about you think about leaving him in some place a little bit longer the day I come from the school earlier so you can be with me? He was organizing all of this. It wasn't coming from me. That is what brings me sadness. Because it wasn't coming from me. It was coming from him.
Yeah. In fact, it almost seems when you're telling me, it almost seems like he'd had to grow up quickly because of your situation and circumstance. Because his brother had autism. You know, you were working lots. He basically was like, right, well, I need to become the man of the house as such. I need to take on and help Mum because, you know, my brother, you know, we've got my brother and, you know, I love my brother, but like we have to look after him because he can't look after himself, or he thinks about things differently to how I do. And therefore we need to just make sure he's safe and, you know, doesn't put himself at harm.
Incredible. He was incredible. So he organized and said, I can try I don't promise you. I will give it a try. And he said, and one night maybe we can go out as well together to have dinner together. So Friday was our night together, and I planned someone to look after my. So I always was trying to find ways, because I was looking after my children by myself without any family close by. My family was living 1,200 kilometers away. So
yeah, exactly. And also, I don't think people actually understand the challenges of having an autistic child as well, because it's like you don't feel like you can take them. Like, it's not like you can take your child out to a restaurant and sit down and have a normal meal with them. I mean, talk to me about those sort of situations. Like, what was it like actually having your eldest son and like going shopping? Or, I mean, could you do that?
Impossible. Go shopping, impossible. When we used to go out to the street sometime, he used to get so overwhelmed by the noise of the cars, by all of that he started to pull off my hair or drag me to the floor, or beating me, because he couldn't cope with the noise and with everything, with all of the people in the city. So it was very stressful. Just
like too overwhelming for him. And therefore, so how would you get through doing normal, and I'd say normal things, but how would you get through shopping? Because there's no click and collect where you are, is there? There's no,
it wasn't by that time.
There was no ordering online and getting it delivered, so you didn't have to go shopping. Like, you'd still have to go to the shops. You'd still have to do stuff like that. So how did you get through with all of that?
I was lucky because in Argentina you can have housekeepers, so the housekeeper used to do that.
Yeah.
So I was lucky with that. So she used to go to do all the shopping because I couldn't go to shopping with him. So I was staying all the time with him. However, me trying to find out things, I started to take Federico to play golf, to start learning to play golf, because I thought, this is a good way where we can be in open line with both of them. So I started to take Federico to practice golf, then to take both of them to a golf course, to a very far away one that where no hardly anybody used to go to that golf course because it was too far, it was new, not many people knew it about this golf course. So I used to take Federico and Martin.
Okay.
So Federico used to hit, I used to hit my ball, I used to make Martin to sit down, hit, and then continue. And he was a little bit calmer there. He used to have some meltdown there, but they weren't as often as it. So it was the only way we could enjoy something now outdoor, because we couldn't enjoy anything. It was always me looking for places where nobody was around, where I could be with both of them. But it was very sad.
Well, I was going to ask you, like, what did you do at weekends and when you weren't working?
Inside the house.
Yeah. Because you couldn't.
Most of the Federico was taken by other mothers.
Oh, okay.
They always invite him. Always.
Yeah.
Always. He's still friend with the same friend since he was 5 years old. So he's still, and the mother, they were so kind with him, but I was inside the house with Martin all the time. Until I discovered where to go with him, that it wasn't so much stimulation and he could cope with this. So, but even though he was getting taller, he was 190.
Wow.
So he was so tall, and the strength of a King Kong, it was so high.
Well, yeah, because like at the end of the day, like he's becoming a teenager, like, I mean, it's, autistic children, 7, 8, 9, 10, they start to grow up and they start to become autistic adults. And he is now an autistic adult. So that's a whole different challenge because, well, I've only ever seen you sitting down, but I don't know how tall you are. But but like, as a mother, you're then dealing with an adult man who potentially is having a meltdown because of he's oversensitized by noise or by people or whatever, and like that must have been very difficult and very hard for you to actually deal with. Like, I mean, it's not too bad when they're like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 even maybe, but then when they start to get a lot older and a lot bigger and they're the same height as you and then they're taller than you and they're bigger and they're stronger than you, I mean, how did you deal with that then?
It was getting worse and worse. What I haven't told, that by the age of 11, he needed to be medicated because nobody was coping with him. Against me, because I don't like medication at all. I never took any Panadol, anything. I coped with everything. The way I coped with myself, it was I learned meditation. Once I sought help, I learned how to meditate, how to create a space for myself. The bathroom, it was my sanctuary, my bathroom.
I can, yeah.
Oh my goodness, it was the place where I used to cry, the place where I used to breathe, the only place, because Martin was going to my room everywhere. Where he didn't used to go, it was to the bathroom to bother me. So it was the only place. And really, he started to be medicated by 11 years old, but by 14, the medication wasn't helping him either. So everyone was telling me, please, you need to find a place for him. You cannot continue living this way.
Were you scared for your life as such? Yeah. I mean, and were you scared for Federico as well? Because I mean, like
he never was aggressive. He used to bother Federico a lot.
Well, that's just being a brother.
Federico was getting very anxious and stressed because he used to turn on the light and turn off and go to his room and laughing about him getting very angry at him.
And was that one of the reasons that Federico was losing his hair, was because he was getting stressed by the situation?
Exactly, because he used to steal the food from Federico play, and Federico used to be, my food is my food. He used to steal food from everyone, always constantly on the go, always doing this, and always, it was no peace inside the house. It was constantly. So Federico obviously was getting very stressed, and I needed to look after Federico. I needed to look after myself. So I started to try to find an institute where he could go and stay there. Believe me, I couldn't find anything. Wow. Out of Kiel, nothing was good for Martin. Nothing was good. But got to the point that even he wasn't allowed into a plane where I used to go to visit my family. They didn't allow him to get to the plane because they already knew him. So he was going through it.
So basically you couldn't fly with him because if he had an episode on the plane, I mean, things like that they just wouldn't allow him to be on the plane. Wow, okay.
Oh, he always was bothering all the passengers. They knew him. Yeah. And also, it's a long story.
Thanks for listening this week. Part 2 with Graciela will be published next week. Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast and you would like to hear more, please hit subscribe wherever you like to hear podcasts. If you would like to support us further, share this episode with your friends and family. And finally, drop us a review on iTunes, as I'd love to hear your thoughts, comments, and ideas. It all helps me to understand and produce awesome content you want to hear just like this. If you want to check out our past episodes, write to us, appear on the podcast, or for links, resources, and show notes, go to our website, www.strongsingleandhuman.com. We are also on all the usual social media platforms, Insta, Facey, and Twitter. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you back here again soon. Be kind to yourself, and remember, no one is perfect. We're all just putting one foot in front of the other and doing our best. I'm Claire Martin, and you've been listening to the Strong, Single and Human podcast.